Hey everybody, Tony D and Little Joan with another Piney podcast today. Yeah, two. This one is what the heck, man? Oh, here it is. Okay, good. Hold still, you stupid web page. My God, these web pages don't want to stay on point here. I was watching Tim Pool, and he did a piece on Atlas Gym. No, not Atlas. Attilas Gym. Attilas Gym. And he pointed out an article, which I'm going to get to in a minute, that I'd like to comment on. But also, while I was looking for that, I came across this article. New Jersey, this is from July 30th. New Jersey legislature voted on over 100 bills today. Here are the ones you should know about. Race. If Murphy signs S-19, New Jersey will have a new official state holiday, Juneteenth, the day enslaved black people in Galveston, Texas learned they were free on June 19th, 1865. Look, I guess, but here's the problem with this. I don't think anybody passing this bill or most of the politicians passing this bill really care necessarily about history. This day will cost us money because the state will be closed and all the state workers will get paid. So, I mean, can we have a holiday where the state workers don't get off? Can't you just have a day where you honor people and then not have a day off on our dime? Because it seems a lot of a holiday for something that happened in Galveston, Texas 100 years ago, over 100 years ago. And we already have a day we have lots of holidays. So I don't think it's a good idea to pass race-related holidays. I think this is virtue signaling. I mean, if you're going to do a federal holiday and everybody gets off, well, maybe, because then I'd get the day off too, and, but this is a state worker holiday. And it just feels like, oh, we got to get on it too. And then they passed another resolution urging Congress to remove statues of federal leaders from the Capitol Hill, which seems like a gigantic waste of time. And a gigantic virtue signal. Look, removing statues from the U.S. Capitol, I mean, we already have representatives in Washington. Governor Murphy. We have congressmen and senators, and we could write them if this is important. Having our state then turn around and tell the U.S. Capitol what to do seems odd and weird, regardless of whether or not you agree with this. And here's the quote from the article. This is from NorthJersey.com. This is not a matter of political correctness. Yes, it is. It absolutely 100% is. It is a corrective action to replace an outdated designation that is rooted in institutional prejudice. Murphy, Sweeney, and Coughlin said in a joint statement supporting the change. This is virtue signaling. This is peak virtue signaling. And everybody involved with this kind of stuff will pay at the ballot box. Because we have actual problems in this state, bigger problems than this. You should fix the problem. It would be different if everything in this state was running perfectly. And then you had nothing else to do and you passed a measure like this. Well, then maybe. Maybe because you're just sitting around fine. We have real problems in this state. 23% of our restaurants have permanently shuttered. And that's just from the last time I read that article. You've got businesses that are dying on the vine because they cannot fully open. Murphy has been indecisive, closing and not closing, threatening to close up again. This is incredibly damaging to small businesses, large businesses, Oh, but he's trying to protect the big businesses. Don't worry. Because if you're a corporation in the mall, one of the anchor stores that has a door to the outside, oh, you could open. You could open. Oh, you're Walmart or Dollar General or any of these other big names. Oh, well, you're an essential business because, you're a large corporation. And, a guy from Goldman Sachs like Phil Murphy, he understands how essential corporations are. See, if you run a small business, you're not essential. F you. And he passed some housing relief, which, where are you going to get the money? Everybody's going to be leaving the state. Half the state's going to be out of work. You're turning us into paupers. Financial options for towns and counties. The beer virus pulled the state budget into turmoil to the tune of $10 billion. Gee, I wonder why. Local governments have seen drops in revenues. Yeah. Because the businesses are closed. People are getting laid off. 23% of the restaurants have shuttered. Those people are out of work. And the rest of them, they're not operating at full capacity, not even close. Protecting personal information. State officials are making contact tracing, the practice of informing people they may have come into contact with someone exposed to the virus, a central part of the reopening plan. And the lawmakers want to make sure information gathered during the process remains protective. I have zero confidence that the state can do that. Assembly Bill A 4170 would require the public health entities or third parties to limit use of personal data to contact tracing only. Zero confidence. I promise you, in months ahead, there'll be a big article about how all the data was stolen or used or bought by some company, and the state will be like, well, we got to do a better job next time. Give us more money so we could have a task force. This is what they do. This is ridiculous. The state is one of the worst places in terms of being at the forefront of things like computers, because they always have old computers. They're always like way behind. I had a friend who used to supply computers for the government, and he said the tricky part was the government was so big. This is a federal government. It was so big you couldn't upgrade them to present day computers. You had to upgrade them for computers that were like 10, 15, 20 years old, because if you couldn't make that jump, like it would be too much. So it's like, I don't know if you remember the days. I'm dating myself here, but I used to have a computer. It had floppy drives, right? You can't really go from floppy drives to the current hard drives of today, right? Because you need a floppy drive in order to transfer all that data to. I guess you could do it. I mean, these days it would be doable. But, back then we were still in this mode of like, it was floppy drives, then the smaller floppies. Then we went to CD-ROMs and, So I don't know where we are in terms of the state computers. I mean, New Jersey as a state's pretty, it's a decent size. I mean, certainly the bureaucracy is big. So, protecting personal information, they're probably at least 10, 15 years behind on the computer front. I mean, I'm sure they're not on dial-up, but the computers probably aren't that great. I have zero confidence that they're going to keep my information safe. Zero. Short-term rental refunds. Short-term vacation rental services like Airbnb would be required to provide refunds or credits to people who had planned visits to New Jersey. Well, I guess. I mean, I don't see that it's a major problem, but fine. If they're not doing it, seems like they would. I had a friend who had an Airbnb, and she got a refund. It was a pretty major refund. If you do this thing through your credit card can take care of it. Voting districts and census delays. Both Senate and Assembly passed resolutions that would put a question on the November ballot asking voters whether delayed 2020 census results should also delay the state's redistricting process. The census population counts are used to redraw the districts. Oh, here we go. This is where New Jersey tries to fix the election against Trump. One of the ways, I'm sure. And to fix it so Republicans can't get elected. Critics of the change say delaying redistricting would cut off the voices of minority communities whose populations have grown since the last census in 2010. Indeed, quote, indeed, the interest of the black and brown communities in New Jersey who confront some of the worst racial disparities in the country and who are now facing the worst of this pandemic must be prioritized. Henel Patah, Director of Democracy and Justice Program at the New Jersey Institute for Social Justice, Justice, Social Justice. Jesus. Patel spoke on behalf of a group of advocates, activists, and academics called the United Black Agenda. Well, this seems a bit racial in that you want to prioritize these groups. I don't think you should prioritize any group based on race. That seems racist. But in terms of just the practicality of it, there's no way they can count the people by November. They haven't even started. I know somebody who's training to be a census taker. They haven't even started. So, I mean, this is August, September, October, November. There's no way. I don't think so. I don't think they could do it in 3 months. Not the way the government operates. State government, anyway. Health insurance fees. Oh, boy. Both chambers passed a bill to impose an annual 2.5 state tax on net premiums of most health insurers. Great. Yeah, I wonder who's going to pay that. You pass a tax on a company, they just go, okay, raise the prices. That's all they do. So you didn't pass the tax on them, you passed it on us. It's expected to raise $900 million, which I'm sure you'll piss away on some of these programs, starting in 2021. The tax would flow to a health insurance affordability fund, which would subsidize premiums for those who buy their own health insurance, and the state's reinsurance pool that helps companies pay large claims. We're helping companies pay large claims. Why? Why are we doing that? Every time I read something about my government, I just become despondent. It's just despondent. The bill would also require a report examining how the policy affects racial disparities in health insurance coverage. We've got to get rid of these social justice warriors. They've got to be, run out of office. Murphy, an advocate for the bill, of course, said the tax will replace a federal levy that sunsets at the end of this year. Business and insurance representatives opposed to the bill argue that employers would see their premiums increase. Duh! And as insurers would pass on the cost of the tax. Of course it will. What do you expect to have happen? This happens every time. Well, we passed the tax, but it wasn't on the people. It was just on the big companies. Oh, duh! Yeah. And then they just raise their prices so they don't lose any money. God. Here's the one thing they passed I liked. The one thing I'm totally on board with. Pets and dogs would be allowed allowed in outdoor dining areas. Under a bill the Senate passed 39-0. Addresses a gray area between health regulations and state law that says, yes, you can take your dog to dine with you outside. Yeah, this was like a pressing matter. Right, Joan? Right, Joan? Yes. Now we could go out to eat, Joan. With the 2 restaurants that will be left in New Jersey, assuming we're not both penniless. All right, finally, I got to get to the big news. This was the one Tim Pool talked about. New Jersey Assembly okays bill allowing undocumented immigrants to obtain professional licenses. Okay, so you come to a country illegally, you are able to work and get a professional license. Why? Why do we have a border? If this is the case, why? Why do we have a border? This is ridiculous. You shouldn't allow this. This is absolutely an outrage. Look, I like immigrants. My ancestors were immigrants. But immigrants should come here legally. Legally. And it should be a streamlined process. And yes, they should be able to get professional licenses. Although I think there are too many professional licenses. If you eliminated a bunch of them, like barbers, and just said, you don't need a license to be a barber, it would help people. You don't need a license to be a bartender, or there's a bunch of things they license. It's just stupid. But now you're going to let undocumented immigrants? These people are in the country illegally. So you're going to let them become professionals and just ignore the law, essentially, is what you're saying. This is Democrats. This is all Democrats. 100% Democrats. This is what they've been driven to. They just virtue signal about everything. Oh, I love immigrants. I'm going to let you get a professional license. I'm not going to address the immigration problem. If you address the immigration problem, then people could come to this country legally, and this would be a non-issue. It would be a non-issue. Because undocumented means they have absolutely no legal basis to be here. Okay? There are plenty of legal immigrants. They come here legally. They don't even have to become citizens. They come here to work. They get a green card. And then maybe they stay long enough. They get married. They become citizens. Or they go through the process. You're effing the people who went through the process. You're effing them. So someone who's gone through the process, it takes a ridiculous long time. That's what you should be working on. Streamline the damn process to become a citizen. Why don't you send a message to Congress about that? Oh, we can't do that. No, we gotta look like heroes because we're gonna be a state sanctuary state where we let all sorts of illegal workers come in. This is all about getting cheap labor. Okay? All undocumented workers have to worry about being deported. So guess what? Their employers can say, work for this, or I don't want to pay you this week, or you hurt yourself, go F yourself. I'll turn you into the INS if you tell anybody. That's what you're doing to these people. You're putting them in a vulnerable position to be exploited. And it's wrong. And you know it. This is the Democratic Party. And it's why I'll never vote for them again.